leaders of the business community, and to all our distinguished guests. It's my honor to join you here at the premier economic forum in the Indo-Pacific, the 2018 APEC CEO Summit. Thank you all for being here. At this forum last year, President Donald Trump laid out the United States' vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific, where, in his words, sovereign and independent nations with diverse cultures and many different dreams could prosper side by side and thrive in freedom and peace. And President Trump personally sent me here today, 1 year later, to report on our progress in achieving that vision. Across the board, we've taken decisive action. And the United States' commitment to the Indo-Pacific has never been stronger. The Indo-Pacific encompasses more than half the Earth's surface and more than half the human family. 2/3 of global trade happens here, and its economic potential and strategic importance are only growing by the day. To unlock the region's boundless opportunities last year, President Trump promised to pursue robust trade relationships rooted in the principles of fairness and reciprocity. And from South Korea to Mexico to Canada, we've forged new and historic trade deals, and more are on the way. He promised to give the nations of the Indo-Pacific a better option to support infrastructure projects by reforming our development finance institutions. And today, the United States has more than doubled our financing capacity to $60 billion. The President also promised to build stronger partnerships to ensure our shared security. And this year, we've provided more foreign military financing to the Indo-Pacific than the previous 3 years combined. The President promised to confront grave threats to security, and we've stood with our allies and partners in the region to defend their sovereignty, root out terrorists, and bring North Korea to the negotiating table. And last year, at this very forum, President Trump promised to always put America first and get the American economy rolling again. And our actions have led to growth in our country that's benefiting countries all across the Indo-Pacific as well. Under President Trump's leadership, in the United States, we've cut regulations at a record pace. We've unleashed American energy, and we enacted the largest tax cuts and tax reform in American history. The results have been remarkable. 4.5 million new jobs, the lowest unemployment rate in half a century in our country, and more Americans are working today than ever before in American history. We're on track to reach the fastest growth in nearly 15 years, and after 10 years, the United States is once again recognized as the most competitive economy in the world. And American growth, as I said, is driving global prosperity right here in the Indo-Pacific. Over the past 2 years, American businesses have announced more than 1,500 new projects and more than $61 billion in new investments across this region. The United States' total investment in the Indo-Pacific is now more than $1.4 trillion, more than China's, Japan's, and South Korea's combined. And American investment in the Indo-Pacific will only continue to grow. America's renewed economic growth is vital to our vision for the Indo-Pacific, where strong and independent nations grow stronger still, and they grow stronger still together. And that's what America has always sought, going back to our nation's earliest days. Our history in the Indo-Pacific is a story of trade and commerce. Starting more than 2 centuries ago with the Empress of China, a ship that left New York and traveled across the Indian Ocean and into the Pacific, reaching Canton, where it traded American ginseng for Chinese tea and porcelain. Throughout our history, it's been a story of friendship and partnership, of bonds built over time with every nation, east, west, north, and south, including 5 of our most cherished treaty allies. It's a story of strength and a story of sacrifice, of our nation's bravest standing shoulder to shoulder with many of yours to push back the tides of imperialism and communism, from the Coral Sea to the Incheon landing, to countless hills and beaches and jungles between. And it's a story of progress in the Indo-Pacific, of our nation working hand in hand with all of yours to uplift our citizens and usher in a new era of opportunity for all. Across this region, hundreds of millions of people have climbed out of poverty. Innovation and entrepreneurship have accelerated. Dictatorships have fallen and democracies have risen in their place. And citizens have stood tall to reclaim futures and reassert their independence, from Malaysia to the Maldives. As we gather here at APEC, we're writing the newest chapter, even now, of that progress, and we're guided by our vision. As President Trump described last year, the United States seeks a free Indo-Pacific, where independent nations boldly pursue their own interests, respecting their neighbors as equals, where societies, beliefs, and traditions flourish side by side, where individuals exercise their God-given liberties to pursue their dreams and chart their destinies. The United States also seeks an open Indo-Pacific, where commerce and culture flow freely, where the seas and the skies are accessible to all with peaceful aims, where disputes are resolved without conflict or coercion, where nations trade with one another, gathering as much as they give, and where we embrace a future of endless possibility for all who call this region home. This vision, I know, is shared by the vast majority of nations in the Indo-Pacific. It excludes no nation. And from the western shores of Latin America to the furthest reaches of the Indian Ocean, the United States has extended a hand in a spirit of friendship and partnership, seeking collaboration, not control. In all that we do, we're working tirelessly to advance our shared prosperity, strengthen our shared security, and uphold our shared principles. Trade, of course, is central to our interests in the region. And as the President said last year, the United States will, in his words, make bilateral trade agreements with any Indo-Pacific nation that wants to be our partner and that will abide by principles of fair and reciprocal trade. Beyond the deals that I've already mentioned, the United States will soon enter negotiations on a trade agreement with the world's third largest economy in Japan. I'm also pleased to report that America is already in discussions for another trade deal with yet another APEC member, and we're just getting started on that. And while we've been forging new trade deals, we've also stood up to countries that use unfair trade practices. Just look at the stand that President Trump has taken on our trading relationship with China. As the President said just a few hours ago in the Oval Office, we have great respect for President Xi and great respect for China. But, in the President's words, China's taken advantage of the United States for many, many years, and those days are over. As the President's added, China has tremendous barriers. They have tremendous tariffs, and as we all know, their country engages in quotas, forced technology transfers, intellectual property theft, industrial subsidies on an unprecedented scale. Such actions have actually contributed to a $375 billion good trades deficit with the United States last year alone. But as the President said today, that's all changed now. We've taken decisive action to address our trade imbalance with China. We put tariffs on $250 billion in Chinese goods, and we could more than double that number. But we hope for better. The United States, though, will not change course until China changes its ways. Beyond trade, the United States is promoting private investment in the Indo-Pacific as never before. As we stand here today, American companies are hiring and training your workers, holding themselves to the highest standards. They don't serve a distant capital. They bring benefits directly to your country. And you need look no further than Papua New Guinea for proof of the critical importance and benefits of American investment. Take one example. ExxonMobil has already invested more than $19 billion in this nation, building more than 450 miles of pipeline, and creating more than 2,600 jobs here in Papua New Guinea. And the overwhelming majority of those jobs are local hires. Now ExxonMobil, I'm informed, intends to double the capacity of its plant here in Port Moresby with another multi-billion-dollar investment. And tomorrow, I look forward to joining several of our allies and partners in the region to announce a historic initiative that will transform Papua New Guinea's future. But American investment is not just growing here, it's surging all across the Indo-Pacific. Our companies are constructing power plants in Bangladesh and expanding digital connectivity in Nepal. They're building solar panels in Vietnam and innovation centers in Singapore, shaping energy infrastructure in Peru and expanding healthcare services in Chile. And they're installing and maintaining underwater cables to connect many nations in the South Pacific to the United States and the wider world. And America is taking action to spur greater investment in digital connectivity, especially. This week, we created the U.S.-ASEAN Smart Cities Partnership to strengthen the cyber economy of Southeast Asia and bring American business expertise to bear on the region's digital needs. As we pursue similar projects in the days ahead, I can assure you we will continue to hold fast to our conviction that a free and open Indo-Pacific also deserves a free and open internet. With this renewed commitment to development financing, we're also making infrastructure in the Indo-Pacific a top priority, from roads to railways, ports to pipelines, airports to data lines. And the United States has a principled approach that stands in stark contrast to some other nations. As we speak, as we're all aware, some are offering infrastructure loans to governments across the Indo-Pacific and the wider world. Yet the terms of those loans are often opaque at best. Projects they support are often unsustainable and of poor quality. And too often they come with strings attached and lead to staggering debt. Not long after our War of Independence, my nation's first president, George Washington, warned of the dangers that could undermine all that we had achieved: debt and foreign interference. And so today, let me say with great respect to all the nations across this wider region and the world, do not accept foreign debt that could compromise your sovereignty. Protect your interests, preserve your independence, and just like America, always put your country first.